Hey YouTube, I am Nikki Bites. Today, we're gonna have a little lore drop. I'm gonna give you guys all the details and you guys are gonna understand why I'm still in therapy to this day and still dealing with the repercussions of how I was raised. I've talked to people who have been through similar things, so I hope that this can provide some validation if you were raised similarly. If you're a parent or if you're going to be a parent, please listen to this and don't raise your children the way I was raised because it fucking sucked. A slight trigger warning for parts of this video. I get into certain topics like suicide. Trigger warning before we get into this story time. So it all started when my mom met my dad. We are gonna go that far back. Both of my parents are Romanian. They were both born in Romania. They're both, I believe, 4th generation Seventh-day Adventist. I'm not gonna get into a ton of detail on the denomination just because it's a touchy subject for me. Basically, they are Christians. Unlike Pentecostals and like a lot of other denominations, they keep the Sabbath, so Saturdays. They have a decent amount of restrictions. I would say in more modern churches, it's not exactly like this, but like when I was a child, like this was the standard for this denomination. So some of those things include not drinking coffee, no alcohol, a restriction on certain kinds of meats, like they don't eat pork and a bunch of other things. I don't know if this is still observed, but back in the day, there was no jewelry, no tattoos, no smoking. Way on the conservative side. They also have a prophet. It's a woman who was hit in the head with a rock when she was a child, and then was having visions from God, and she wrote like a million fucking books that are fucking loony, fucking kooky banana books. But they read those books like they are the word of God. So if the Bible is here to them, their prophet's books are also right here. Okay? That's a little, you know, in detail about the religion. So my dad's family fled communist Romania. My mom still lived in Romania. When communism fell, their friends put them in touch. Now, my mom grew up in the church, but she had a little rebellious phase. She left the church for a while and apparently was an atheist, at least that's what she said to me, before she came back. I have heard from other family members that she like only wore black and like leather jackets and boots and shit. So, I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I would love to know why I got judged so heavily when I started dressing like this, but moving on. Okay, so my mom's back in the church. My mom ends up moving to the States for my dad. They get married, they have me, okay? She's back in the church when they get together. But she's kind of a normal member. She's not doing anything that the rest of the church isn't doing. We lived in California at the time. I was born in California. When I was about 2 years old, my mom started getting a little bit more into the teachings, specifically the teachings of Ellen White. That's the name of the prophet. This prophet talks about how you need to move out of the cities because the Sunday law is coming. So you need to be out of the cities because if you don't worship on Sundays, if you worship on any other day, basically they're gonna persecute you. And then there's a whole thing with the mark of the beast and, you know, all this loony bin shit, okay? So my mom starts getting into the readings a little bit more, nothing too crazy yet. She decides, mind you, most of her family, a good amount of her like immediate family, like her parents and her sisters, they had moved to California to be with her. They had all moved from Romania, and then her sister had moved from France. They moved to California to be close to my mom, okay? It was hard for them to get to the US. They were very upset and disturbed by this move because they moved from another continent to be here, and now you're moving across the country. They sold everything, picked up, and moved to North Carolina. Family's not happy at all. Once we were in North Carolina, my sister was born. We lived, I don't know, like the suburbs. Like my dad was an electrical engineer, and he made very decent money. We were comfortable. my mom starts getting a little bit more into these teachings. So she's raising both of us to be vegetarians, even though she was not at the time. My dad, however, was. My dad was vegetarian his whole life. Then my mom goes vegetarian. What does it say in Ellen White's books? It very, very strongly suggests that you should be a vegetarian or a vegan, okay? She becomes a vegetarian. She starts talking about homeschooling us. I was put in a daycare for about 2 weeks, and then one day I came home with ketchup on my mouth, and my mom was very upset. She went to the school and was like, hey, why does she have ketchup on her mouth? And they were like, oh, well, we had hot dogs for lunch. And she was like, oh, well, I told you guys that she was that we don't eat meat. So she pulls me out of daycare. And that was the only time I was in any sort of school. From there on out, we are homeschooled. Now, in North Carolina at the time, homeschooling was very popular. So there were communities, there was a lot to do, you know, like it wasn't isolating. So that was fun. But after a while, my mom decides that our house is not far in the country enough. Mind you, it's not in the city. It's in a fucking neighborhood, okay? But that's not far enough for her. It's not remote enough. They sell the house. They buy a 200-year-old historical house. There's not a lot of renovating that you can do to it. The floors were literally made out of a tree that was fucking extinct. The house wasn't in good condition. Now as an adult, like I look back and I'm like, wow, that was a gorgeous house. As a kid, I didn't fucking think that. And I still think to this day that that was not a house to have kids in. There was black mold in the house that they had to try and get rid of. Everything in that house was a fucking safety hazard. They start fixing up the house as much as they were legally allowed to. My dad's still working his job. My mom is a stay-at-home mom. I forgot to mention, so my mom she was going to law school, and then she switched and she went to art school. So my mom was always like super crafty and stuff. At our first house in North Carolina, she like made all our rooms themed. We had themed rooms, like everything, like she painted it, she painted the walls, like she did all of that herself. And as kids, like that was fucking awesome. That was like the best thing ever. She's not crazy yet, disclaimer. When we were in that first house though, I do remember actually now, sorry guys, I've repressed a lot of these memories, and sometimes when I'm saying shit, I'll remember something else that was like fucking insane. Before we moved into the really old house, my mom woke up one day and decided that we couldn't play with Barbies anymore. They were from the devil. So she took all my Barbies and locked them in the white room, that's what she called it, locked it in there. We were never allowed unsupervised in that room. I don't know why she made a room for us and then didn't let us be unsupervised in there. I never saw them or played with them again. Now, Bratz dolls, out of the fucking question, never even had one of those. That was way too fucking far. Inappropriate for children, as my mother would say. Back to the old house. We started going vegan at the time. We got chickens, we got goats. It's all sounding great, right? We start milking our own goats. My mom decides that she wants to start preaching the health message, which Seventh-day Adventists, their message has a lot about health in it. Back in the day, I don't think it's as common now, but it was very common for Seventh-day Adventists to be vegetarians or vegans. Their prophet talks about and wrote a bunch of books about. Some of them are healthy things, but a lot of it is just like super dated and like not based on science. She decides that she wants to start preaching the health message. She does. She starts hosting little health seminars and cooking classes. All starts out great, right? She starts wearing skirts more. Less pants, more skirts. When I say skirts, I mean to the ankle, okay? She starts planting her own garden, making her own soaps and creams and lip balms and shit like that, which was also pretty popular at the time, especially in North Carolina. We would go to like farmers markets and sell that, which was fun, but it got old pretty fucking fast. But we never had a choice. If we were like, oh my god, we don't want to do this today, we didn't get to not do it. We still had to be there and be a part of it. My mom starts getting a lot stricter with who we can be friends with. Mind you, we could never go to anyone's houses unsupervised or without our parents, no sleepovers, no nothing. She starts getting stricter, no makeup, no painting our nails, no nothing. She starts enforcing the skirts a little bit more. I actually have a scar on my knee from when I was learning to ride the bike, and I was wearing a skirt, and it got caught in the fucking bike chain, and I fell, and I have a big ass scar on my knee. My mom is starting to realize that this house is still not remote enough for her. So they start talking about selling this one again. We sell it, and we move to Idaho in the middle of nowhere, in the boonies, in the middle of winter, because they wanted to see if they liked it in the winter. We moved with this older couple. They were, I think, about 40 miles from the closest city on a dirt road. They had to like keep their house warm with like fire and shit. The man was very nice. He was very kind. The lady, on the other hand, not so much. So during this time, I was 7 or 8. I started acting out a little bit. I don't know, maybe it's because you're uprooting us every 2 years and we're losing all our friends and there's a lot of uncertainty of what's going on in our lives right now. I don't know, just a thought. Maybe that's why I'm acting out, okay? Well, my mom says that it's because I'm worldly and rebellious. And by acting out, I mean like not wanting to sit down for worship every morning, which was literally like an hour of like waking up, and then we would have to sit and fucking pray and sing a bunch of fucking hymns and then read the Bible and then talk about it. Participation was not optional ever. So that was what acting out meant. It was not even anything fucking crazy. This woman that we were living with, she had a granddaughter. Mind you, all of these people were from our religion. Her granddaughter rebelled. She was a teenager, she was older than me, and she left the church. And to them, that was the worst thing in the world. Rebelling to them meant that she wasn't going to church anymore, and that she was lighting incense in her room, which is a big no-no because that is witchcraft. I always looked up to her. I thought she was cool as fuck. And that was another thing about me, like I always looked up to girls who I felt like were really themselves and they were like confident in themselves. One time someone came home, flowers from the store, and you know like the plastic wrapping that comes around flowers in the store, it's kind of shaped like a cone, and so I put it on my head and I was running around the house and I like made a joke like, oh my god, I'm a witch. I got in trouble for that. But that's when I was sat down and we had a talk about how I'm being rebellious. I walked into a room and the woman who lived at the house didn't realize that I had walked in, and she was talking to my mom about how rebellious I am and that if she doesn't get me in check that I'm gonna end up like her daughter. Her daughter, who was a junkie and lived under a bridge and they had no contact with. She never found out that I knew about this conversation, and that really, really hurt my feelings. I remember being like kind of shaken up as a kid. So yeah, we were there for 3 months. That's when my mom really starts getting more heavily into everything. So we pack up and they're like, okay, Idaho is not the place for us. They do research for months. They decide that actually we're gonna go to Costa Rica. Complete opposite of what they had been talking about this whole time. First of all, we had to leave our dog behind. Mind you, was my first pet. I had that dog since before I was conscious. But it wasn't so sad because this move was presented to us as temporary. We'll go to Costa Rica for 3 months, then we'll probably come back and decide what we do from there. Well, we went to Costa Rica and we were there for 3 months and our flights left without us. We never came back. We lived in Atenas for about 3 months, and then my parents started looking at places to buy. We rented a house near Lake Arenal, for those of you who are familiar, that we lived in for about a week maybe. The gardener who would sit and watch us through our windows, the pipes in the fucking laundry room exploded. There were bats in the fucking house. There was mold. It was genuinely like awful. Like it wasn't even like, oh, this isn't a place for kids. This isn't a place for anyone to fucking live. Because there was mold, me, my mom, and my sister got insanely sick. Now what do we do? Well, we're gonna pick up and go and stay at our friend's hotel. So we lived at their hotel for probably like a fucking month. We're in a fucking hotel. Backtracking again. When we flew to Costa Rica, they were playing Spider-Man. I had never watched anything of the sort. And my mom watched us almost the entire flight to make sure that we weren't watching the movie. Well, I did, but I never watched something like that until now. Everything I had watched until now was like VeggieTales. At this point, my mom was a little bit too conservative for VeggieTales, so VeggieTales was off the table now. So Spider-Man scared the fuck out of me. The first few days that we were there, I couldn't sleep at night. I was having nightmares. I was tormented because I thought that I was gonna burn in hell forever because I didn't listen to my mom and I watched this. And I cried and I told her how much I regretted it and I apologized. After that, we had peace. We didn't fight. I wasn't rebellious for a couple of months because according to my mom, I let the Holy Spirit in and I was letting it work on me and coming back to God. Again, can't let you guys forget that I was a child. Back to where we were. So they end up buying a property with no house, mind you, because why the fuck would they do that? They're gonna build it from scratch. We moved into an apartment, a decent apartment. We were there for a while. We ended up moving to another apartment. I don't know why. I can't remember why we moved. So we've been in Costa Rica for maybe a year at this point, and we've already moved 5 times. My mom wants to open a health center. My mom doesn't have any sort of medical degree. This is everything that she has learned from her prophet's books. They start excavating or whatever the fuck to build. All their preaching has gotten the ear of my dad's brother, who is very well off with his wife and his daughter. They also live in California. My uncle starts freaking out because he thinks that the end is coming. And so he decides that he wants to move to Costa Rica now. So they move out with their daughter and they move into the apartment next to us. They start talking about how actually they want to open this health center together. So my parents agree. Only problem is my uncle doesn't like this property. We need to find a different one. They end up finding one. I believe it was 60 or 80 acres. I can't remember. Now this property, truly secluded. The closest village was 20 minutes away. And when I say village, I fucking mean it. Like, everyone knows everyone. It's fucking tiny. Not even gravel, it's mud to get to this property. So half the time, like, people's cars are getting stuck going up here. Eventually, we moved to the village. They split it down the middle with my uncle. My parents are starting to run out of money. What are we gonna do? On our side of the property, there is an old house that was built on stilts because back in the day in Costa Rica, it was very common for farmhouses to be built on stilts, and then underneath is where they would keep the animals. It is literally abandoned. Like, there are plants growing into it. It fucking shakes. Like, this thing needed to be torn down. My parents have the brilliant idea, why don't we fix it up a tiny bit and bring our 2 young daughters to live here. At this point, I'm probably 10 to 12. We're still living in the house in the village. Every time it rains, the bugs are trying to get away from the rain. So where do they go? Inside the fucking house. I woke up multiple times to my bed full of ants. Ants that fucking bite you and it fucking hurts. I woke up because I was being bit by ants in my fucking bed. I woke up and there's hundreds of ants in my fucking bed. And after that, I kept having nightmares. I would like wake up in the middle of the night thinking that ants were fucking biting me again. During all of this, my parents aren't like, oh my God, maybe we should actually like put the health center on hold and take care of our 2 young daughters. The health center is my mom's wish. And if it isn't apparent yet, it will become apparent soon. But my mother is a raging narcissist. All of these things were my mother's idea. But my dad has always put his head down and did everything my mom wanted and asked for. We had some neighbors, and the son also had a cousin. And they were both around the same age. One was 13 and one was 14. Very rarely we were allowed to play with them. But after a while, it became apparent that I had a crush on one of them. And my sister had a crush on the other one. Keep in mind, we are children. This was a very innocent crush, okay? My mom starts to notice. And how does she notice? Oh, because I try to play outside when he's playing outside. That's about the extent of it, okay? My mom grabs me one day, probably a 2-hour talk with me, very serious talk. My mom hadn't had any adult talks with us. My mom would rip out the pages in our biology books, in our anatomy books, anything sexual, anything, ripping out the pages about reproduction. This is a biology book, okay? It is not a dirty book. We know nothing, okay? Has a talk with me about how these boys see me as a piece of meat and they want to use me and take advantage of me. I understand the message, but should have been worded very differently. This talk specifically shouldn't have been given to a fucking 12-year-old who didn't know shit about shit. Maybe you should have started with other topics. What am I supposed to do with that information? What does that even fucking mean? And they want to use me and take advantage of me? Absolutely psychotic. And I remember struggling with this conversation afterwards because what does that mean? That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. And I think that's an inappropriate conversation to have with a fucking 12-year-old. Maybe you could have been like, hey, here's some ground rules, or, you know, some safety, you know, like you can't be in a room with the doors shut with them alone. You know, normal shit like that. But no, you have the most psychotic fucking talk with me. We end up being prohibited from playing with the neighbors' kids. We still found ways here and there, but it was very, very rare. Back to the property. They end up building a huge, beautiful house while my parents are renovating the other house. Oh, mind you, there's no electricity or running water on this property at all. This big house starts to become a small little point of just like tension between the two families. They're greedy and, you know, they're not humble like the Bible and Ellen G. White says we should be. My parents move us to the property. They get some electricity there. My dad learns about hydroelectricity, puts some shit together, makes that happen. So we have lights at least, which go out constantly. Anytime there's a storm, anytime there's anything. We never had running water in the house. At one point, they made a bathroom in the house which had running water, but it didn't work half the time. But that water was from the river, so anytime there was a storm, the pipes would get clogged and the water would come out brown. All our drinking water we had to go down and get at the spring. We also had an outhouse, which, mind you, we are in the jungle here. So sometimes we'd open the lid from the outhouse and a fucking bat would fly out, or we would find a snake in the bat. 80 or 90% of these snakes, they're poisonous as fuck. We are not even close to a medical center. You have a fever, an awful fever, we're not going to the doctor. You're gonna have elderberry extract, which is fine. It's combined with everything else. My mom starts giving us more and more chores. If we were disobedient, was sending us out to pull weeds, which, again, we're in the jungle. It is hot as fuck and humid as fuck. Now I'm aware that I have sensory issues. Wow, whenever I touch dirt and then it dries on my hands and then I rub my fingers together, I feel like bursting into tears. This is the worst thing I've ever felt, and it's causing me agony. Voiced this to my mom about how much I hated it. So she would intentionally never let me wear gloves, ever, because you shouldn't have soft hands. You need to have rough skin that shows that you work outside. Physical labor. That was a word that she loved to fucking say. Physical labor. Homeschooling is not legal. So everything that we're learning is what my parents are sitting down to teach us when they feel like it. They start enforcing that we read our Bible when we wake up and pray. We have to pray before and after. And then before we go to bed, we have to do the same thing. Every morning we're waking up, we're doing worship for an hour. We have to sing, we have to talk. Participation is mandatory, okay? I really struggled with blindly believing in what I was told. So, for example, if I was getting in trouble for something, I'll take the punishment, but I would like for you to explain to me why I'm in trouble. I was told that I was arguing and I would get into more trouble because I was arguing and not listening. I felt the same way about religion. A big thing that I struggled with was, Okay, so you're telling me that when I find the love of my life, when we go to heaven, we're not going to be together anymore. We're going to be like brothers and sisters. I don't really want to go to heaven because that sounds awful. Forgot to mention this. Before we moved to Costa Rica with our church in North Carolina, we would go out to like farmers markets or like outside museums in groups, and we would pass out books. We would pass out their prophets' books and just be like super pushy and like obnoxious fucking Christians. I hated doing that, but again, participation was mandatory. I had to be there. And I never had that freedom of choice. I had to be a part of that. Also, sorry with the backtracking again. When we were in North Carolina, we stopped celebrating any holidays. I remember celebrating my birthday a couple times, celebrating Christmas once. After that, that never happened again because Christmas is pagan and so are birthdays. So the most we do on our birthday is like my mom would make us a cake. Starting in North Carolina is when I started feeling a little bit like an outcast. My mom also started treating me differently because I did not show affection like my sister did. So starting in North Carolina, my sister started becoming the favorite sibling. She was attached at the fucking hip to my mother, and she did everything my mom wanted. She did everything to please my mom. There started to become a little bit of tension there between us because she was not asking questions and I was, and I could not show affection to her the way my mom wanted me to, so she would force me to. And I remember how uncomfortable and foreign and fucking weird it felt being forced. Like, oh my god, you have to kiss your sister's cheek and tell her that you love her. Like, literally forcing me to do it. And that I was gonna grow up to be a terrible person because I did not know how to show emotion and affection. As an adult now, like, maybe you should have gotten that checked. Maybe there was a reason why I didn't show emotion or affection like everyone else did. You resort to telling a child that they are selfish and a terrible person. So back to the farm. They fix up the house enough, we live in the house. Meanwhile, my uncle is living, right next door in his big fancy house. Now, when we lived on this property is when my mom really started to lose the plot. We had to get rid of most of our pants. I remember when I was about 13, I got my period and my mom basically had the most minimal conversation she could have with me about it. Basically, she was like, your body is shedding its uterine lining and you're gonna bleed every month. With those terms, which she had never had any other talks before, so that meant nothing to me. So I had no idea what was happening to my fucking body. Okay. During this time, my mom decided that we needed a little more structure in our lives. She cooked up a little daily schedule. We had everything planned out down to when we could drink water. You know what? Let's go down a little list of our restrictions at this point. No water with meals, 30 minutes before your meal, or an hour and a half after, because that's what the prophet said in the book. No sugar, no fucking oils, no cheese, no dairy, no meat. Skirts below the knee, and they had to be at least this much below the knee, including when you were sitting down. This includes we're working outside. Now, if nobody was over, sometimes we could get away with wearing really loose pants. If someone was over, we had to wear a skirt. We have to watch ourselves and our body language and our clothing when men are around, because we cannot be the speck in their eye that causes them to trip. Reminder, I was a child. If I am 13 and you are talking to me about what I am wearing, tempting men and making men lust, why the fuck, instead of having that conversation with me, why aren't you looking at the men who are surrounding us? Maybe that's the problem. Just a fucking thought. Just a fucking thought. Okay, continuing. No talking to boys. No social media. No touching any phones, even if it was my dad's phone. My mom had her laptop. We were not allowed to go on the laptop. No books, no music, no movies. We had some documentaries, mostly animal documentaries. Now, on Saturdays, we couldn't cook, we couldn't clean, we couldn't buy anything. Either go to church or we would study at home, and then we would eat, and then we would close the Sabbath when the sun went down. Nothing else on Saturdays. Now, that is just a small list for now. It gets more extensive as time goes on.